Think of your last ride. How far did you ride? How fast did you ride? Are you sure about that? Here's a way to be sure. I was showing our local trails to a buddy. It was his first time and he wanted to track his distance and speed, so he set his watch and phone before we started. When we were done, his phone said we'd gone 7.5 miles. His watch said 12 miles. My Garmin Satnav said 14.63. So, how far did we go? 14.63, plus or minus a few hundredths of a mile. How do I know? I'll explain in a minute, but first, let's look at why my buddy got such radically different numbers. To start with, phones are rubbish sat-nav devices. They can get you to the nearest coffee shop in any urban area, but they have nowhere near the accuracy required for managing tracking data on the undulating terrain of a mountain bike ride, and they're not much better on most road rides. Sport watches are better, but still not great. So my numbers were accurate because I use a sat-nav device then, right? No. Sat-nav is okay in wide open spaces on fairly consistent terrain, but put it in the woods or in a canyon, whether natural or engineered, and its accuracy falls off rapidly. And while it can track the gentle arc of a roadway, it's quickly overwhelmed by the tumultuous up and down of a trail. My numbers were right because of this. It's an IMU for my sat-nav. IMU stands for Inertial Measurement Unit. They're used for everything from satellites to vehicle stability control systems. Basically, they monitor and interpret motion. Garmin just refers to them as sensors, not IMUs, which is correct, but lacks specificity. It's like referring to this park torque wrench as a tool. Yes, it's a tool, but... This IMU tells my Garmin when my wheel is moving and how fast it's moving. It does so almost perfectly. There is some latency on startup. The wheel has to spin just a bit before the IMU pings the head unit and says, "Hey, we're moving again." But a sat-nav driven by an IMU is vastly more accurate on speed and distance than one that's relying on satellite signal of widely varying reliability. By the way, I also use an IMU to monitor and record my cadence. Its accuracy is less than that of a speed and distance IMU because of the nature of cadence. Kick pedaling or ratchet pedaling over obstacles, for example, will often result in unrealistically high maximum cadence numbers. Mainly I use it to discipline myself on the bike and avoid my natural tendency to pedal too slowly. The wheel IMU also detects the nature of the motion, and from that information it keeps track of my number of jumps, jump distance, and hang time. I've never been a real jumpy rider, and am even less so now, but it's still cool to see that jump data. I will say that a recent update seems to have eroded the jump tracking accuracy of my Garmin 830. It often says I've jumped when I know I haven't, and often fails to register jumps I know I've just completed. The jump data on screen was from before this problem started. Depending on when you're watching this, we can hope another update fixes the issue. IMUs are easy to use. Install it, pair it with the head unit, name it if you like. It's all in the instructions. Repeat the procedure as required. I have multiple Garmins and use them on multiple bikes, and I have IMUs on all my bikes. Naming IMUs helps me keep everything straight. Will these work with your smartphone and or smartwatch? Maybe. Most phones and smartwatches are compliant with the ANT+ communications protocol by which these IMUs transmit data. Whether the phone or watch can do something with those data depends on the app you use. Here are 3 tips for using these IMUs. Note that this is for Garmin hardware, which is all I use. Features and procedures may vary with other products. Tip 1. At the start of each ride, first boot up the head unit, then spin the wheel with the IMU. Check the screen on the head unit to make sure the head unit and the IMU are communicating. If you skip this step, the head unit may default to using a satellite signal, which defeats the whole purpose of having an IMU. I also spin the cranks to initialize cadence monitoring. Tip 2. Know that the head unit will calibrate wheel size initially and on startup after that. This can take several miles of riding with the first pairing of a sat-nav device and IMU. That initial ride should be on fairly flat terrain with an open view to the satellite constellation. The head unit will tell you when the wheel size has been calibrated. You will do a wheel size check at the start of each ride after that. If you change anything, such as installing a tire of a different size, the head unit will calibrate itself and report on the screen when this has been accomplished. This takes much less time than the initial calibration. Tip 3. Although the externals of these IMUs are very tough, the internals are insanely fragile. You'll have to replace the batteries occasionally. I do mine once a year. They take common CR2032 batteries. It's super easy to booger up the connections when changing batteries. Start by removing the battery cover and then closely examining the internals before touching anything. Get a couple of pictures with your phone. You want to get all those tiny, tender bits back into their right places. Take your time and be gentle. Confirm functionality when you're done. While Satnav units for bikes have been around for quite a while, IMUs are a more recent development. In the years when I had a Satnav unit, but before IMUs were available, I used a bridge technology to compensate for Satnav's poor accuracy. I share this reminiscence with my behind-the-scenes and angel supporters on Patreon. My Patreon and PayPal links are in the description. Thank you for your support. I'll also put my Amazon affiliate links to the Garmin sensors in the description. So that's it. Getting accurate speed and distance information on every ride is as simple as using IMUs with your Satnav devices. Without an IMU, the speed and distance data your Satnav device provides is, at best, an estimate. I'm Rich Reese, and I'll see you out there.